Marie. Got it. Good. Okay, everyone. Welcome to the first formal meeting of the year, SPMP. It's appropriate we start with SPMP, I should say that. And look, I hope everyone, staff and elected members alike, had some degree of a break over summer. We've got a really massive year ahead of us. I think everyone realises that. So hopefully everyone's feeling somewhat refreshed. Okay, if we could start by joining together in our karakia, please. Tākana, marama, ki tātou. Tākana, ti araha, kia tātou. Tākana, ti rangamarie, kia tātou. Ko Mpirongia, me te kawa. Ko Manga Tautori, ko Kakapuku, no manga. Ko Waikato, ko Waipa, awa. Te hei muriora. All right, so on with the official agenda. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Kempthorne, otherwise we are a full house. So can I please have a mover and a seconder that we accept those apologies? Councillor Joe and Mayor Mike, first and second. Everyone in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Yes, certainly, Councillor Gordon.
We've had a process whereby, sorry, I might have practiced too much holiday over Christmas, New Year. We had a process whereby when somebody gave apologies, the reason either on council business or private business was actually given at the time of the apology. I think that's actually quite a good idea.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gordon, for reminding me. I didn't read out the full recommendation. It was that the apology from Councillor Kempthorne, who is away on personal business, be received. My bad, I didn't read out the full recommendation, but that is the resolution. Is that what appears in the agenda? Okay.
I'll second it.
My bad, and a good call out. I should have read the full resolution. Okay, so that is what we just approved. Okay.
Did you? I think I have a disclosure of interest.
Oh, yeah, I was just getting there. Disclosure of members' interests. Councillor St Pierre.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Monty. It's just, I didn't raise it beforehand with you because I'm not sure about in the Anchor Institution item, it does mention that there's a possible partnership with Tai Ata Tai Ao, the Mangatautari Te Whirongi Ecological Corridor Project. And so I just wanted to flag that I am part of that governance group, that's all. So if you like, I'm quite happy not to participate in any of that discussion, but it's pretty much an information only.
Okay, thank you. Noted, and we can deal with that as it comes up. If it becomes appropriate for you to withdraw, you can withdraw, right? Okay, thank you. Any others? Marie.
I'll share the same corridor is clear, but I'll talk to it when it comes.
Yeah, look, I'm really happy with that. That's a broad agenda item. If it becomes an issue, we can deal with it then, but you certainly don't have to recuse yourself from the whole agenda item, I don't believe. Okay, late items. Does anyone have any late items? I'm not aware of any. Okay, good, there are none. Then moving on to the confirmation of the order of meeting. I don't see any reason to change, so can we need a resolution for that, please, that we confirm it. Claire and Dean, everyone in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. All right, minutes of our last meeting, which seems like a lifetime ago, on 3 December. Does anyone have any clarification or comment they want to add there? If not, I will call for mover and a seconder, Councillor St Pierre and Councillor Kempson. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Brilliant. Okay, so moving into our substantive agenda. This is our council submission on the proposed rate target model for New Zealand. Katie, you're going to be talking to this, are you? Okay. Now, I just want to remind members of our intended way we're doing things is that the management are going to speak to the item have a question and answer session, and then I'll be asking Katie to withdraw so we can debate our support or otherwise of this. Okay, so that's how we're going to run things. Over to you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to briefly remind everyone about the process that we've used to get to the draft submission, and also to remind people about next steps, because the submission is due at close of business today. And so that's why we have taken the steps, which have been a bit unusual, perhaps also with the Christmas break, of providing you with a very early draft, so that we could get an initial steer about whether we were on the right track and some of the key points to be covering. And then also when the paper was released to you, also asking that if you had substantive comments to be able to feed that back so that everybody knew in advance and we were able to work up any suggestions. So just like to acknowledge those. So the first time round we had feedback from 6 of the council members, and that feedback was incorporated into the draft that you've seen. And then this in this latest round, you'll have seen that we've had feedback both from Councillor Gordon and from Councillor St Pierre, which has been circulated to all of you as well. So what the recommendations are is to receive the report, to make any changes that you wish, and then to be able to delegate to the Chief Exec to make any of those changes so that we're able to then submit the submission by the end of the day. Otherwise, I'll obviously just take the draft submission as read, answer any questions that you might have before that time, and just acknowledge the staff who've put the submission together can answer some of those questions.
Okay, questions, anyone? No, that being, Councillor Gordon.
Yeah. Off instead of turning it on. Typical. Go. Thank you for the opportunity to respond. There were a couple of questions that in my subsequent submission that I thought were relevant, particularly to certain factors that you had identified as key points in the proposed rates target model. And one of them mentioned that the points that you raised were depreciation costs arising from the rapid asset base expansion. Now then, we are in possibly, it's not a unique position, but we are in a strong position in terms of our balance sheet and asset base, because on June the 30th, then we are divesting of, and I've got a perception of between 30 and 40% of our asset base that will have a subsequent reduction in the depreciation expense. Now, that's not related to level of service or anything. It is a pure figure that's entered into the balance sheet, but it is an expense, and it does reduce the overall expense base. That means we have capacity to reduce rates considerably. Now, I did ask for actual definition of that because I thought that's an important factor. I'm aware that our depreciation expense in last year is $34 million. And we're actually going to possibly, and that's why I asked for definition of it, 30 or 40% of that, which means that we've got a capacity of possibly 12 million within next year's and the year after's operating model to actually absorb the reduction in rates that is determined by this rates cap. Now, have you got those figures that you can share with me?
So I'll ask James to come up and speak to this. Yes, we haven't been able to pre-circulate that because the team's been working on the response to this as well in the last time since the request came in. So I'll just hand over to James. Thank you.
Well, first of all, it's great to see you all back. Made it all back safely from the holidays. Welcome, and look forward to another exciting year ahead. So maybe we'll start with that. Right. What you're saying, Councillor Gordon, makes sense, but you have to step back. And so you've got to step back, and the revenue we collect is associated with the assets, which then feeds the depreciation. What you're saying is absolutely true from a debt headroom perspective, because our mix of revenue to assets change, right, to debt changes, right? But that's not the case for depreciation. What happens is we get our assets revalued every 2-3 years, depending on the type of assets. That sets our depreciation program. We then rate for that particular asset, right, or that asset class. It's not as simple as sitting there and saying, well, now because we're transferring such a big portion of our assets, that we suddenly don't have to pay so much depreciation because it's attached to the asset itself, not the, and I understand where you're coming from because it makes sense from a debt to revenue perspective from our headroom, not the case with assets. I do have some numbers for you, which I'm happy to share. I only got them last night and I need to review them, but in terms of your request, but no, we don't magically free up some depreciation.
Yeah. Are you telling me then that as from July the 1st,
Yep.
this year,
Yep.
right, which will be a reflection of what's going to happen in the future, that our depreciation expense in that reduced model will still be $34 million of depreciation?
No, what I'm saying is it will be whatever the corresponding asset base that remains, but at the same time, our revenue decreases because we're collecting the revenue to fund the depreciation through rates.
So there will be a reduction in depreciation.
Yes.
And although we can't definitively put a number on that because it depends on which assets, we know that basically it's the water's assets. And we will have built within our model depreciation rates and depreciation values actually identified on those water's assets.
That's correct, but it's all going. It's ring fenced in those activities. We're transferring
And
those.
it is going.
Yeah.
So that will give us that corresponding reduction in our depreciation expense.
Yeah, but we lose the revenue associated with
Not
it.
that we use our revenue,
Yeah.
but it also reduces the overall dollar value of what our operating budgets is.
Yes, but on a smaller revenue base. Am I right? And I'm going to try and ask you a question, Councillor Gordon, to try and understand where you're coming from here. So some clarity would be great. Am I right in you thinking that if we get rid of those assets and the depreciation, we're going to have more revenue and then,
No.
or no?
Not more
Okay.
revenue, less expense.
We are going to have less
But-
expense,
but-
but we're going to have less revenue to cover it.
We are going to have less revenue to cover it, but the fact that we've reduced a non-level of service expense gives us greater capacity within that operating model to reduce the reliance on rates as revenue.
No. No, because you still have to. So the stormwater assets that remain, the transporting assets that may remain,
Yep.
the roading assets that remain, the buildings and infrastructure we have that remain that we need to do our renewal programs on, that we have to satisfy with audit, that are part of the accounting standards set by the international bodies, we still have to collect that depreciation for the renewals program. But the revenue, we will rate for that revenue. So it's a one-to-one match. There's no arbitrage between transferring the water assets out because they're such high value and suddenly freeing up some revenue or reduced expenses. No, nothing changes. It's a complete drop of the assets in the revenue, and we carry on with our residual council, And there is no opportunity, and I want to be categorical, there's no opportunity for here to sit there and go, well, we can reduce our rates because now we've got rid of that. It's fantastic from a debt headroom perspective. Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
If you take the dollar value, say, of our rates model last year,
Yep.
we charged a rate per ratepayer that gave us an overall rates income, which added to fees and charges and grants, etc. That income covered the operating costs of council,
Correct.
right? Now then, I understand that fees and charges will reduce, but what you're saying is that the revenue that's coming from rates, because we're not reducing the overall rates per property, right? It's still going to be whatever it is, and it's still going to give us that dollar value in rates revenue, and yet our outputs are going to be different.
What's your question, Councillor Gordon?
I'm
From
just-
all of that, I don't understand what your question is.
Well,
Can
my
you please give
question
me a
is
question?
that
Because
if-
you're
if
asking me
you
to speculate.
If you retain the same level of rates and hence the same income over a reduced service level of council because part of council is no longer there, then there's got to be capacity to absorb some rates reduction. And you're saying there isn't.
No, there isn't, because we are moving, and think of it as a merger and acquisition, right? A company's just come in and they've bought our assets, our people, and now they're responsible for the looking after of those assets, and they now have those customers that they collect the revenue from. It's literally 100% straight job. There is no arbitrage on our side to sit there and say that we don't have to now collect as much depreciation, because we still have our retaining assets, our retaining business, which is a much smaller business. But the way we do our modelling, the way audit sign things off in terms of our rating, our expenditure, our asset capitalisation remains identical. So there is no, and I said it about 5 minutes ago, nothing changes. The changes in the debt headroom, we now become a much more financially sustainable council.
I can see,
Yeah.
I get that. I accept totally the impact on the debt level
Yeah.
and the balance there. Not a problem with that. I am just concerned with the operating model. And you're not going to lose the 50 million in additional rates that was actually raised by the previous 5 years, including this next year, a 50% increase in rates. You're not losing that. That income is still going to be there.
No, but it's a different mix. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I direct some instructions for you? Because I'm struggling. I think I've answered the questions.
Yes, I was just going to jump in. You have answered the question. It is crystal clear to me. The assets go, the debt goes, the revenue goes. We are essentially selling part of our business. I think you have adequately answered this. I do want to move us on. Shane, are you related to this? Is this a follow-on question, or are you trying to explain it?
Absolutely. I'm just trying to understand where Councillor Gordon's coming from, but I think he's basically saying that because we are doing the Waikato Waters transaction, that what's left allows us to get our rates down. I think the bottom line is it actually doesn't, because we've still got other things. We've still got depreciation on what's remaining. We've still got high operating costs, and we've still got growth that we have to finance. So in terms of submission, to put that in the submission, it's probably not relevant at this point in time because it doesn't solve any problems financially. It just moves things around the board. So I don't know, Roger, if that helps your thinking. In terms of the submission that we're talking about right now, this is the item we're talking about.
Okay, thanks, Shane.
I
Look,
still
this
welcome
has been
receiving
well
the figures
answered.
from
Yeah, we will have the figures to you by close of business tomorrow,
Yeah.
councillor Gordon, and it was a good request, so thank you, and I'm sorry, and I understand that this is complex, and yeah, it is complex.
Okay, councillor Kempson, is this a question or is this a follow-on of the same debate? Because I want to close that off.
It's a very quick question, which.
Question?
is-
Fine with
which
the
is to
question.
say, we don't 100% fund depreciation rates, correct?
Only for the, within our current financial plan, only for it's either the first or 3 or 4 years, and it's a very small amount that we don't fund. And that's was approved by the previous council.
Yep, that was a one-off, and there are certain other assets we own that we don't collect depreciation for, pools being the notable one.
And obviously land.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions? Because we need to move on to debating the substance of this submission. Okay. Thank you, management. If I could ask you to leave, and hopefully I won't have to call you back, but stand by in case I do. Okay, so we have the draft submission, which has had a reasonable degree of elected member input into in its formation. The recommendation now is that we receive the report of Haven Walsh, who was primarily holding the pen on this. We approve the draft Waipā District Council submission, and we provide delegated authority to Chief Executive Steph to make minor amendments to the submission, which, as you've heard, is due this afternoon. So that's the recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, and then we'll move into debate on the merits of it?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it and I'd like to make comments.
Speak to it. Yep, cool. Thank you, Claire. Claire moves. Ion seconds. So we have a live resolution at this point, and I'll invite you, councillor St Pierre, to speak. I'm assuming for it, seeing you moved it.
Yes, I am. I do have reservations as to whether or not it's going to deliver on what the intent is. But I was really pleased that staff worked on it and had it out to us in advance so that we could comment and get it back, because it is a really complex thing, and I appreciated the effort that was put in to I suppose draw on various other institutions that are involved in this dialogue or narrative, and pull the bits out of it, I guess, and make sure that Waipā's voice is heard. And I'm really pleased that we made a strong case of why growth councils need special consideration. So just the process, I want to just commend staff for allowing us to do that. And I'm really keen to know, perhaps Mayor Mike knows, whether or not we're going to have an opportunity to sort of interact with central government and, as it gets developed, or is it just one submission, they're going to do what they like and then we've got to live with it? Or is there going to be more work and I suppose, more input that we might get?
I will hand that response to Steph.
Thanks, Mayor Mike, and Happy New Year. It feels wrong not to greet everybody in mihi kia koutou, mihi o te tauhou, so Happy New Year, although Marcus tells me off for saying that, but it's lovely to see you all back in the room. We understand that the relevant select committees that are going to receive these are going to have a huge amount of submissions. We've also been shared that they are using AI to review the submissions and they will move at pace. I think an indication from you might be that you might like us to say we would like to be heard in support of our submissions, and we could make that a standard practice if you like. Whether we'll actually be heard, I think people got drawn out of the hat almost last year in select committees, but we could indicate to government that we'd like to be heard, and we're certainly both through our own processes, but through the Waikato Mayoral Forum too, perhaps advocate that the Waikato Mayoral Forum could be a voice through which we get heard. And then you've got the weight of 10 or 11 mayors as well. And you saw the letter from the Waikato Mayoral Forum that's been sent to ministers about the reform suite and the position of what the Waikato and what does success look like for our region. So I think an indication from you, I'm looking at my team to get who are nodding, to say if that's a sort of a principled base you'd like to take, aim for the Waikato Mayoral Forum to be heard as much as possible, and aim for us and tick the box to be heard in select committees where that option is there. Some of them I think are moving through it, they're moving through at pace, but we'd be more than happy to take that as a point of principle, Claire.
Yes,
and we'll keep you updated as we're forming a spreadsheet to give to you, and we'll update that regularly about where each of these submissions are. and how the reform is progressing and what does that mean for us. So we'll be developing that and you'll be able to sort of have a live view of where everything is at as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. So that sounds really great. I'd actually like the Waipa stance to be put strongly rather than the Waikato one, because I'm worried that our particular needs are a bit more acute than the broader region. Hamilton's probably in the same situation.
Yeah,
as us,
Waikato
actually, but-
district.
Yeah, but I'm quite happy with the approach with the more broader regional organisation using the Mayoral Forum for that. But my preference would be that we ask to be heard for the rates capping, the rates target. I guess my biggest misgiving is that while I mean, the whole idea of making sure rates remain affordable and therefore limiting the rises on its own, the principle, no one would argue with that. But the way that might be achieved in the material that we've given is that there's alternative funding options that we can explore. And we already know of the work that we've done on that those options are far more expensive for our ratepayers. And so it's not really a viable alternative. So I think that the work that's been put out from central government, I think is half-baked. It hasn't been sort of worked through very well, and maybe they need to come up with better options. And I suppose that's what I'd like to see happen. But I'm pleased that there'll be further opportunities, and it looks like this isn't just a one-off, and then, we've just got to wait and see what gets landed on our plates, that there will be more
Okay,
opportunities.
thanks, Claire.
Thanks.
Yep, sure.
Just a point then, Claire, do you feel that the submission adequately addresses the concept of it being half-baked and that there's probably some more work to be done to get this right? Do you think the submission goes far enough for you in saying that?
Well,
In professional language.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking about Mayor Wayne Brown and how he
His baked
expressed it.
beans.
Yes,
His
yes.
can of baked beans.
And I guess, we didn't want to go to that extreme, but yeah, I do think that the detail that's in there demonstrates that it's, on the face of it, it's not possible to deliver, they're not viable options that could credibly and significantly reduce our rates requirement.
Okay, thanks, Claire. And I'll take that exchange as an undertaking from Steph that we will ask to speak to this if the opportunity arises. Okay, so if, yeah, okay, yeah, that could be good, but particularly on this one, and if there is a minor drafting amendment in there, because I can't remember if we did ask for that or did not ask for that, but I will take that as an undertaking that that's an amendment. Okay, does anyone else want to speak in favour of this? And then I will ask for anyone who wants to speak against it. Mayor Mike?
Thanks, Monty, for that. And hey, welcome back everyone as well. And again, I hope everyone had a great break. Look, hey, I'm actually very happy with the intent of this submission, and thanks to the staff that stayed back over the holidays and those that fed into this. And as Claire said, the other organisations that were able to take some notes from and some I guess guidance from. A few things for me. By the time this rate caps comes in, we are looking at around 4.6%. So we're not that far away in terms of don't panic slowly sort of thing. I also, as Claire's mentioned, this tier one growth thing, and I think it's been picked up in here very, very well. This one size fits all, which again has been mentioned through the submission, it's never a great approach to almost anything. It's easy, but it's never a great approach. And I pick up your point too, Claire, that's, hey, Waikato, you're talking Waikato in terms of all the councils, and I agree there are some far more similar, us, Waikato and Hamilton, probably, total growth councils, and others maybe not so much. So I think you'd find a good alignment there. And look, the unfunded mandates, which come thick and fast and ad hocly unannounced, and that's been picked up here too, because unless that's going to change or there's going to be a change of attitude, it's all additional cost to try and fit to this 4%. And again, I like how it's been picked up. The IFF funding, which I've not been a proponent of in the past, and I hear your comments. Yes, it is more expensive over time. However, I have talked to some other mayors who have used this, and it's been picked up here too. But sometimes there's a view of the cheapest time to build is today. And I guess just moving forward in my own mindset of it might be more expensive, but if we have to hold off years to come to then be able to afford it through another mechanism, that's a business case we should probably look at going forward. So for me, I've sort of written it off as obviously more expensive, but when you look at it like that, maybe cheaper building it today in the future is actually not more expensive. But overall, the 4%, I think is going to be challenging, but anything is possible. So I do like the intent of this and that it is supportive, but it is asking more questions. I think it needs to be done. I really do hope the government do listen to this and it's not a fait accompli, which I seriously don't think it is. In terms of maybe not the number that the government mightn't budge on, but what can be in and out of it. And maybe there can be, we're hoping through these submissions right through the country, that the government will listen to. One size doesn't fit all. So thanks again for all the work that's gone into this.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Mike. So we've had two speaking in favour of this. Can I just have a quick indication? Is there anyone who intends to speak against this?
Yes.
Yep, I thought there might be. This, I think, standing orders.
Thought it might be.
No, that wasn't not pejorative in any way. I'm just being mindful of time. No, please don't think that at all. I thought there might be, and I wanted to leave time for people to speak against it. Okay, because standing orders, off the top of my head, if two people have spoken in advance, I can then change over to people who want to speak in opposition, and I'm just mindful of time. That was all. Councillor Kempson, can I bypass you because I'm mindful of time? Two have spoken in favour. I want to accommodate anyone who wants to oppose. So, Les, were you opposed because you're next on the list? No. Okay, cool. Councillor Gordon, would you like to speak in opposition to the resolutions?
Yes, I will. Appreciation. And I think the same applies in terms of the staff transition. I think there is capacity within that as well. I thought that some of the comments that came through, particularly the one from Councillor Aon regarding we're not operating in a steady state. And I can understand where you're coming from, but to my mind, that's a utopian situation. And I don't think that in all of the times that I have been in council, there has ever been a steady state. That we always, there's always something that comes out of the woodwork. So I don't think that waiting for a steady state is critical. And I realise that you're saying that, in fact, government are assuming a steady state. I would suggest that they're actually introducing across all of their different styles of legislation, that all the different types of legislation that they're coming through, they're all introducing different factors that are going to try and influence a more consistent approach to local government, as we're seeing even in the reorganisation of regional councils. The other factor that I don't think there is a need for a longer transition period. Sorry, let me start this off by saying that I am in favour of rates capping because I think something has to be done to stop the incredible history of rates increases. And we've been as much to blame. An average of 10% over the last 5 years, I think, is unsustainable. So I agree with the rates capping in principle. The change to the transition period, I don't see as being necessary because we have in our past 2 iterations of a long-term plan that was both the aborted plan and the 9-year plan. We have actually introduced a rating after year 3, which has been within, basically, very close to the 2 to 4%. So we've actually shown that actually capping the rates to that level is well achievable within our financial model. So I don't see that there's a relevance there of needing to go to a longer transition period. So I think the 6, 7 points that are mentioned there, I actually don't agree with the relevance of 4 of those points. So that's why I'm voting against the adoption of this submission.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gordon. We're at time. We've had 2 people speak in favour of the resolution, 1 speak against. I want to put this to the vote now. So all those, we're back on page 14 on diligence recommendations A through C, which are now being turned into resolutions A through C. We have a mover and a seconder. Can I ask all those in favour, please say aye. Against?
Aye.
And would you like that recorded?
Yes, I
Councillor
would.
Gordon?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, thank you for that. Good debate. Moving on, we are now up to tab 7, which is another submission on NZTA's speed consultations in the Waikato and Bay of Plenty. And it says Brian, but it looks like we've got Eric. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Chair and elected members. Before I start, I just want to request a minor correction to my report. So in recommendation C, I've spelt Evalisa's name wrong.
Oh, dear.
That's never a good thing to do to your boss, but noted, and we will let you, we will note that amendment.
Thank you. Can I take the report as read?
I strongly suggest you do take the report as read, and then I can invite questions from elected members. Claire.
Thanks. I'm really pleased to see this review being supported. One of them's in my ward, and we know that intersection, has had crashes in the past and that. So I'm really happy to see this and happy to support the resolution as well.
Okay, I'll invite you to move it later. Questions, Dean?
Yeah, hi. I sent a question back. I was interested to know if there was any evidence from NZTA for the number of these intersections they've already done to show the results, looking at the past and the present. Now, it's not particularly that I'm against them, but a number of places where I travel, there are a few of these intersections, and there's also some issues that I find around them that are a little bit disturbing. One of them being that if you slow down for one of these 60 or 70k zones, you're in danger of being rear-ended by the people behind you who can't be bothered. And so sometimes they create some sort of other danger. I'm not saying that going slower if there is a crash is not a good thing, but I'm wondering if there's evidence that shows that, what we're trying to achieve is actually happening. I got told there was, but I wasn't given the evidence. And the other thing that bothers me about one of the ones I drive through is because they're obviously a law, when the temporary sign comes on and it's got the red around it, that's the law, that's the speed limit at the time. If you're on a straight piece of road, like when I drive up to Coromandel, there's a couple of them that are on straight pieces of road. If you happen to be coming into it when it activates, or it doesn't activate, but it activates when you're in it, you're inside it. If a policeman or a traffic officer was coming the other way and decided that you were speeding, how do you prove that you weren't? So if you're on a straight piece of road, hopefully they would see that you're already there when it gets activated. But if you think of the one that's going into Hamilton at the top of Chinaman's Hill, which is on a bend, and the activated part for that is back towards Ruakahia, you can be inside there, you can be going along, you're allowed to do 100 if you can plant your boot when you get out of Ruakahia, with this stupid thing now where we've got about 5 speed limits all in one place. You can plant your boot, you're doing 100, the sign doesn't come on, you can go past that intersection at 100, and if it's suddenly activated once you're in it, you're going to get an awful ticket and demerit points from a cop coming the other way and no way to prove that you didn't know. So that worries me about that. Not that we shouldn't be saving lives, but I also don't think we should be in that position. So I asked for some evidence and I haven't seen it. So I just want to know about those things.
Thanks,
I
Dean.
support it.
Yeah, through the chair. So yeah, after your email, I found the document that appears to be the right one in terms of an actual factual report on the reduction in crashes. So I'll just double check that's the most up-to-date one and I can forward it through. With regards to enforcement, I would have to seek advice from the New Zealand Police how they deal with those issues that you've described. And I can do that and get back to this council.
Okay, thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, Eric, I'm just wondering, why do they have the variable speed limits? Why isn't it just 60 Ks? Because like Dean said, the one at Chinaman's Hill, but it worked really well when the whole bit was 60 Ks from the roundabout in Hamilton through to the end of Ruakahia. So you could see the variable speed limits, I think, it's quite confusing and would just be better if it was just 60 Ks.
So that's been the government policy, is to enable higher speed limits, and that one in Ruakahia on Stairway, just past Ruakahia, Stairway 3 is a classic. So that was 80 K an hour. They made it 100 recently. We didn't support that. I think the way you got to think about these things, so this technology, it's a real classic case of low cost, low risk. So it's a low cost intervention, low risk in terms of there's no land to acquire, that the project is a simple project. The ultimate treatment is a roundabout. And for most assets, but NZTA, obviously there's budget, priorities, that this is a genuine low cost, low risk intervention to reduce crashes.
Okay, Liz.
Yeah, just on that Tararoa Whitehall Road, it actually comes in the other end at the school and the service station. I was just wondering if there's anything going to be done about that, because I live out there and the speed limit's still 100 K going through past the school and the service station. And as far as I'm concerned, it's probably worse than the other end.
So you talk about the Karapira School and a mobile.
Karapira School, it leads onto Tararoa Road.
Yeah.
As I said, I live on that road and I know what it's like.
Yeah, so NZTA is developing the Cambridge Porirua Expressway project, which completely deals with that issue. And they're going to the board this month for construction funding approval.
That's going to be 6 years away, so.
I think their indicated timing is quicker than that.
Well, I've been told by.
But that could be in terms of completion.
Oh, and completion maybe, yeah. It depends where they start, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just saying they up the speed limit back from 80 Ks in that area back up to 100 too.
Councillor Bennett, totally acknowledge the questions and all the questions that have been asked around NZTA, and Happy New Year also, by the way. These questions and the conversations we know are really important. In the last triennium, a letter was sent from Steph as Chief Executive to the NZTA, Andrew Corkle, Director of Regional Relationships, posing a number of questions. And one of those actions that was requested was that NZTA actually come and sit here, and so that elected members are able to ask them the questions rather than our staff trying to respond on their behalf, so that we can take away those actions and work with the NZTA on that. So totally acknowledge the questions that are being raised, but we know it's important for NZTA to also be here to be able to respond to those questions, but also hear from you as elected members to the concerns that you're raising in the communities and the information that you're being asked about and the concerns that you have. So that is coming. So we're aiming to have that this quarter, aiming for April in that type of time frame. So hopefully that then allows for the informations that are being asked in this submission acceptance report to be able to go on further, but totally acknowledge the concerns that have been raised around safety, particularly in the Karapiro intersection.
Okay, thanks, Evelisa. That's really good update, and look forward to that, because we're beginning to move on to issues aside from the two intersections that we're being asked to consider. So I'll call questions there. If I could ask management to vacate the seat. Councillor St Pierre, you had kind of already indicated support, so I'll invite you to move these recommendations, which appear on page 37 of Diligent, A through C again, receiving the report, approving the submission, and providing delegated authority to Evelisa for any further minor amendments. Dale Marine second. Does anyone feel the need to speak in favour of this, beyond what Claire has already really done? And can I invite anyone who isn't happy with this submission to speak against it? There being none, I'll put the recommendations to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent, thank you. Okay, tab 8, page 43 of Diligent, Cambridge Connections. This is the development of the long list of options. I'll say no more and hand straight over to Katie.
Yeah, thank you. So we are building on the work that happened just before Christmas, when elected members agreed on the 3 problem statements, to use that language from the NZTA business case. We now move into a much more constructive, positive kind of language about what are the potential solutions. And that's what we'll be working with as we go through this year. So this phase of work, which takes us through to the 1st of April at the SPNP meeting that day, is to then collect community ideas and supplement that with technical input to then develop a long list of potential ideas. Then after that, as you can expect, we then start to filter till we get to a draft program later in the year. So this phase involves 2 things that to talk about today. The primary thing is to seek approval for the assessment framework that we will use to develop the long list, and that's what's included in Appendix 1 of the paper. And then I'll come to the community engagement that supports this work, if I may. So firstly, the strategic framework, just a couple of things about that. What you'll see in the paper itself is that we've put this together drawing on the objectives that council's already signed up to around that strategic alignment. So that's around the future-proof Hamilton Waikato Metro Spatial Plan, of which we are a partner, the Ahuake Community Spatial Plan, and then the Waipa Transport Strategy as well, all of which are really consistent with each other around what they want for the district and then Cambridge within that district. The problem statements, the next layer, are obviously those 3 that you approved just before Christmas. And then we've developed the investment objectives and then critical success factors. The investment objectives, this is again sort of the methodology overall is really standard for an NZTA business case approach. Those investment objectives draw heavily from the Ministry of Transport's transport framework, which is what they've used for all of their long-term strategic planning. And so it covers that sort of suite of transport outcomes that you might be after. And we have looked to really focus on those things that have come up as being important for our community within those investment objectives. And then finally, the critical success factors speak very much to the sort of the practicalities of what's going on. Those are drawn very heavily from the 2 tools that we have from NZTA. NZTA uses what they call the EAST sifting model, the early assessment sifting tool, and then a multi-criteria analysis that you would expect. So what we're proposing here is to make sure that we've set up a strategic framework that we can then rely on through all of the work that we go through this year, that draws on what's already been in place, and that we have a broad assessment criteria. And the idea of this is to then be able to remove things that are beyond scope for the project, cluster or things that just would never be able to be progressed. But beyond that, the long list is exactly that. It remains a really full list of potential ideas, and that we come and workshop with you in the middle of March about then how we would develop more granular assessment criteria to then be able to take it to the next phase. So that's perhaps a little bit about the background of the assessment criteria. To get us to that long list, there's an really extensive community engagement proposed, and the community and the comms and engagement plan was included in the material so that you can see that, and all of you have on your desks what will be distributed to all of the households in Cambridge as one of those bits of collateral, so that again, it just gives you a sense of the overview of the project. We have we've developed the comms and engagement plan so that we are going to get really good reach across all of the range of parts of our community. And we've had feedback into that draft from a range of people who are listed in the report, including from members of the Cambridge Community Board, so that we really make sure that we haven't had blind spots in the way that we've put this together. Again, we're kicking this off, going live. The community engagement phase finishes on the 9th of March, so that gives 6 weeks, and then gives staff some concentrated time to then be able to put that together on the long list and bring it to you for the 1st of April. So that's the sort of timeframes we're using. So again, seeking if there are any major blind spots that you're aware of, please let us know today so that we can build that into the plan. But otherwise, we'll be carrying on with that work. But happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Excellent. I think we'll do questions in 2 parts here. So Appendix 1, which appears on page 51, this is a really important step in Cambridge Connections, this methodology for the long listing, which will influence the subsequent steps as well. So if we can, we'll first question on this, and then we'll talk about the comms and engagement approach. We'll question that. I think it's useful if we do that in 2 parts, okay? So Appendix 1, questions, please. Claire.
Yes, thanks, Katie. Look, I love the work that's been done, and it's a really thorough, I think, well-reasoned set of documents. So I'm pretty happy with it. I have sent through comments about it, but in particularly the strategic framework, I just wanted to test with you about explicitly providing for outcomes for emergency services. So I just wanted to check with you whether or not you're able to include that. Some of the feedback that we got from various channels was that fire and ambulance are concerned that sometimes the just sheer gridlock, the amount of congestion that's on those main routes, really it extends the length of time that they can get to an incident, which is of concern to them and could even have negative outcomes for the people involved. So I think that's really important, and I want to make sure that that kind of, I suppose, need or that feedback we've received is going to be catered for well within those investment objectives. I thought that's probably where it's going to go. I don't know if it needs to be in the critical success factors, but yeah.
It was something that we've certainly specifically spoken about within the project team. And so, I feel comfortable that when we're talking about managing congestion, that's one of the things that's specifically called out in the first box about providing reliable freight and transport routes. And in our comms and engagement approach, we've specifically committed to engaging with the emergency services to make sure that their voice is heard through this phase of the project.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good call out. And we discussed this, of course, in the problem statements phase and decided it was adequate, but it's a good call out and it does fit nicely in that box 1 investment objectives, doesn't it? That the emergency services are considered in there. Do you think you might specifically note that or not?
I was actually reassured by the fact that you've identified them as someone that you'll definitely be engaging with directly. So we'll get some really good feedback from them anyway, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Gooden.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this is actually comms and engagement or the strategy. I thoroughly endorse this. I do, 100%. But in your discussion document here, you mentioned that as well as seeking the long list of solutions, that you will be providing additional new data as part of that mix of information. And I'm wondering, will that new data be available publicly so people who wish to respond have got access to, in fact, that data on which either to change perception or to generate some different solutions? That data availability is going to be really interesting. And are you intending to make that public?
Yes, absolutely. And the data will obviously continue to become available throughout the life of the project. What we have got on the web page is a resources section that we will keep adding that information to. Quite a bit of it is already uploaded. So, for example, there's information about deaths and serious injuries. There's information about the One Network framework and the current level of service on the roads. So there's a number of sort of bits of technical information as well already. And as, like I say, as additional information comes to hand, that will be uploaded and people will be made aware of that. It's one of the things that, I'm sorry, just to finish, that one of the things that we are expecting and really hoping that that's the role of those people who sign up to the Ideas Forum, for those who want to be able to look under the hood a little bit more and get involved in that way, that we are having that direct opportunity with the Ideas Forum, and through this engagement phase, inviting anybody who wants to join that Ideas Forum to be able to do so that they are really kept up to date with those things.
Okay. And that data will include origin and destination?
Correct.
Data? Yeah, good. And updated origin, yeah.
Correct.
So it was a little bit communication, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, that went to the substance for me. Do you have any indication of timing of the origin and destination data?
Yeah, we're looking.
Could I invite you please to come up? Because this was a high public interest topic last time, so I want us to be very clear on.
Yes. We're just Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, we're just exploring the different options to gather that feedback at the moment. So one of the areas we're looking at is TomTom data, which is gathered through some consultants. So we'll be able to feed that back through, and we're expecting to get that back in the next month or so. So yeah, it's I can probably send that further information once we've confirmed that out. Yeah. Which is available, that collects and records origin destination type data.
Right.
As well as another like trip routes and data times and things like that. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything further on the methodology here? We have plenty of time available for this. We left a lot of time. Yeah, Les.
Carry on from what you're there. I'm just wondering when you're talking to the public and getting their ideas and alternatives, and when we get closer to the preferred solutions and that, is it also going to be made, the financial costs are going to be made available to the public?
Yes, absolutely. And so what will happen, that will happen at the long list stage with a sort of order of magnitude of cost, which is what we will know at that stage. And as ideas get refined, then obviously we'll be able to be slightly more specific, and I say that sort of deliberately about the sort of about the order of magnitude of costs. Obviously, the transport plan doesn't come up with the really specific projects. We will need to still develop business cases and put them through to the long-term plan and the regional land transport plan for inclusion at that time. But you will get a sense of the sort of, like I say, order of magnitude of costs to be able to make some of those trade-off choices that you'll want to be able to make. Yeah.
Claire.
So we're moving into the methodology of the general.
Given there's not a huge range of questions coming in, yeah, let's open up to that.
Yeah. So these are just other concerns that I had that just make sure that they're covered off. Like I noticed that about the criticality of NZTA funding to enable most of this work. Yeah, it's done really well on this. Yeah, it's one of the first things you read. And so that's good. It didn't come through that strongly in the material that we had in the agenda. That's also, I was just concerned that a lot of the stuff that's sort of been done in these early stages is to set ourselves up to have a really compelling case to get NZTA funding. So I just, yeah.
Yeah, look, thank you for asking, because it would have been a wise thing for me to have mentioned that at the outset. So, look, absolutely, we know how critical that is. I mean, in general, it's 50% subsidy for work that we would undertake, which goes a heck of a long way. So, on that point, we have lodged what's called a point of entry for the business case, so that they are not just aware, but that they approve of the overall, they acknowledge there is an issue to address, and that the work that we're doing is of sort of appropriate scale and methodology to address it. We are working closely both with the investment advisor, who is the person who usually carries that forward for the business case, and secondly with staff at NZTA who are applying the same sort of methodology about this 30-year strategic transport planning approach. They're doing that right now for the Auckland Motorways network. They're also starting to apply it to the Hamilton-Tauranga corridor work. They've got a number of bits of work that they're starting to roll out up and down the country. And so we continue to work really closely with that team to make sure that we're applying that kind of approach in an appropriate way at a district scale. They've been very, very supportive of that approach. They're really interested to see how we go. We are the first council to be applying this particular methodology. So they want to learn from us, and they want to support us to be successful in this way. So that's something that will certainly, that relationship will certainly continue to be really important for us, so that we have confidence. They have stated to us that they want to be in a position to endorse the plan at the end. Now, obviously, endorsing the plan doesn't mean that money must follow, but being able to endorse the fact that the plan is appropriate to address the problems that you've identified is exactly where they want to be, and to support us to get there.
Oh, look, that's music to my ears. Like it sounds really great that you're doing that groundwork to get those relationships really strong and people aligned with the objectives and things like that. Yeah, couldn't fault it. So that's fantastic. And then I had a question around the Ideas Forum, which I totally agree with. I think that's a fantastic approach. And I wondered whether or not a bit more detail could be, well, maybe it's what you're intending, I don't know, but it's great to have a lot of ideas, but it's good to know which ones are easy to implement, or, how long it would take to implement, what impact would they have, yeah, and then the cost of them as well. So whether or not that kind of analysis or sort of framing is going to be part of the process once you get your big sack of ideas.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll see in the critical success factors now, then that value for money down the bottom it really picks up on your point. And when it comes to then this more granular assessment criteria for the shortlist, then that's absolutely something that we're working up in more detail, because that's, as you say, what really matters is the impact you get for the spend.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I've got one little other thing, but okay. Well, it was just the stakeholders or the people that you were reaching out to, and there wasn't a mention of tertiary students or university students. Love the work that's been done by schools in Cambridge. That's fantastic, because those are that future generation and that. But I do know that, yeah, some university students have got very strong ideas about transport, particularly public transport and things like that. Yeah, so any chance of hooking into either, you know, Wintec or the university or something? Yeah.
Well, we'll certainly we'll pick up that idea and see what we can do. Certainly at the moment, I think we, in the current approach, we'd end up picking them up a little bit through the social media campaign part of the plan. And we've obviously got numbers around the public transport numbers, which includes how many are actually getting off at the university bus stop and back and forth as part of this work. And we're working with the regional council around some of those public transport options. But we'll certainly pick up your point and see if we can do actually broadcast the
Yeah, I think
opportunity
so. I
more
mean,
broadly to those students.
I'm using an example, the fact that they're needing to get to those institutions in Hamilton, but they will be living, that they will be living in the community as well and wanting to do stuff in there. But you know, that sounds great. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. We had a little bit of discussion over the email about this, and that was the availability of the previous long list that was done under Cambridge Connections, and irrespective of what the result was of the past Cambridge Connections, I thought that long list that was generated was considerable and had some really, really good ideas within it. And I think that the judgment that you've got to do is, do you use that to spark other ideas to generate from that, or do you retain it back in the back pocket until you've allowed people the opportunities to spark their own interests? And then you've told me that will be introduced, the previous long list, and I'd be interested in your comments as to whether you think the time that it should be introduced, either to spark additional discussion or to supplement discussion that's greenfield discussion.
So yes, absolutely. We had over about 500 pieces of feedback last time round, and they are absolutely ideas that should be part of the long list, and they will be. At the moment, the way that the process is working, this is actually just a matter of logistics rather than any philosophical position that would be captured into the database that we're running. But we're capturing feedback from a range of sources, and there isn't an easy way to show all of that until the end, because we will have people who email, we will have people who write things and drop it off at our service centre. We will have people who jump online, which we hope is many of them, and actually put in comments. We will have notes from meetings that we attend with stakeholder groups. So we'll have these multiple sources that we're pulling into the database, which is going to be very, very big. At the end, we will absolutely make that the full list available. Once we've actually got a full list, we'll be theming that up against the NZTA intervention hierarchy and then theming it into some of the common themes that come through from the community. So there will be that full transparency at the end, but I think it's going to be very difficult for us in the way that we're working to be able to do that as we go through this 6-week period. But like I say, everyone will see that list at the end, and they will see absolutely what ideas have come from the community. And just as happened last time, if there are technical ideas that we have added to supplement those community ideas, then it will be clear that they have come from technical staff rather than from our community. Yeah.
Okay, Mayor Mike.
This is about comms and engagement, is that right?
Yeah, fine, we're open.
Picking up almost on the back of Claire's, the flyer, so it's going to Cambridge residents, Maungatautari or just Cambridge?
Just to Cambridge.
Yep, all right.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Do you want to come and answer this then, Ingrid? Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to mislead you.
Yeah, no.
We'll just get the person who actually knows about this to answer the question.
Kia ora. It's going to all Cambridge urban and rural residents. So everyone captured within the Cambridge ward. Thank you.
Oh, so
Or catchments.
can I ask for clarification on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mangatautari to me is rural Cambridge anyway. So am I right in assuming the interpretation of your comment there is that it will be the Cambridge ward and the Mangatautari ward that will be circulated? Yes?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Right, stay just in case. Hey, just in terms of this brochure and in terms of students, etc., going across to Hamilton who live in Cambridge, is this going to go on the buses in terms of like a hard, not just the buses, but this goes out, it's in the papers, I see the website, several ways of engaging, but is this going to be statically anywhere? And the buses is one idea, but other places?
We're actually putting posters up in the bus stops,
right,
which has the QR code and how to give feedback as well. So that will be there. There's also, we're printing about 1,000 extra of these mailers to be used for whoever and whenever they want it to events. And we can certainly put them up in public places as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And that face-to-face thing will be great. And I see there's several opportunities for the public. So look, this is an opportunity for the public. You've got just over a month or so. But the talk out there, I'm sure all of us have given many people a damn good listening to, that they are engaged with this, it is out there, but this very deliberate comms strategy, so thanks to the comms department and everyone, there will be no excuse for people not to feed it into this, so the challenge is to the community to engage, because this is going to affect us all. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Chief.
Yeah, go ahead, Rod.
I just reflect back a number of years ago, and there may only be a couple that remember this, but as part of a project to get community consultation, there was a whiteboard erected in Empire Street with the detail on it, but that allowed people just randomly to put their comments on. That would be good to consider something like that, because I thought that was a really good idea to really get random comments coming up on a big whiteboard.
Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. We can certainly try and pick it up, and particularly, me and Mike have already mentioned the public events that we've got, so Trash and Treasure Market on this Sunday, for anyone who's looking for something to do on their Sunday morning. Yeah, we'll be there, and those are exactly the sorts of places where we'll have the information about Cambridge Connections and ways that, all these range of ways that people can provide their feedback. So we want to make it as easy as possible, to your point, in a way that really does capture a wide range of ideas.
Okay.
Okay, I guess it's my turn to say Happy New Year to everyone. Look, I'm a little bit close to this, obviously being on the project governance committee, but I think it's a really good piece of work. We've prodded it a bit, and I think it's very well put together. And I think that strategy, you can throw darts at it all day long, and you'll find it sort of, we're opening the mouth of the funnel here. And I think we're doing a really good job of opening that nice and wide. My only point was one, just actually for the people around this table more than anything else, within the comms and engagement plan, page 21 and 3 pages onwards, which is page something else and diligent, 65 something, 73, excuse me. There's 3 and a bit pages of key messages that the team have put together. So that's well put together, well thought out. Pre-arm yourselves with those if you haven't already. And that's the stage that very neatly describes the stage that we're at. So if anyone stops you on the street, that's where we're at, and it describes neatly what we're doing and what these next few months look like. But I think it looks really good. So I just wanted to voice my support for it all.
Yeah, and we will be providing sort of 3 to 5 key messages for you, and the same for the Cambridge Community Board as well, so that everyone feels well equipped to be able to speak about the project. And if there are, if you have other networks, if you want further information, then copies of something, then we can obviously provide that for you.
Okay, brilliant. Just final question from me then. Katie, could I just invite you? You've spoken a bit about what happens from here. Could I just get you to reiterate what happens from here this community brainstorming session, and then just what this looks like over the next 2 or 3 months for us in particular, so everyone's really clear.
Yep, certainly. Perhaps it's best to refer, like in this brochure here, where we've got the roadmap. These represent the decision points that we've got for you as elected members. So we will be bringing you the long list to approve on the 1st of April. And as I say, we will have had a workshop with you in March to get feedback about the draft criteria. For the shortlisting, we will then come and apply that shortlisting criteria and develop a shortlist. We will bring that to you for approval. We will then take that to develop the draft transport plan that will come to you for approval to go out for consultation. And that will then go out for that structured consultation through the special consultative procedure. And then we will come to you with a seeking approval for the final transport plan in December this year.
Brilliant, thank you. That's what I was after. If I could invite you managers to leave then, please. And our recommendations for this matter appear on page 51. Again, A through C, just receiving Katie's report. The important one, B, approving the methodology that was in Appendix 1 and the strategic framework. And then we have already provided bits and pieces of feedback on the comms and engagement plan. So that is C. Okay, so mover, Councillor Gordon, seconder, Joe Davies-Colley. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Well done. I look forward to that progressing. Okay, that brings us slightly early to our morning tea break. So we will break for 20 minutes now. We're attempting just to slightly bring forward the next agenda items, but 20 minutes, which brings us back at what does that say? Just 5 minutes to 12, 11, sorry. Yeah. All right.
Can I just make just one last comment on that? And it's just a statement regarding going back to Mayor Susan and I guess resetting this and good on her and the courage having to do that. Good on the last council that she put, I think it was about $815,000 into the annual plan to do this properly. And hopefully the community can see that this, I'd rate our progress 9 out of 10. There's always room for improvement, but we have made a genuine effort to get this right and we'll put the resources and commitment into this. So Katie, thanks to your team and everyone that has been involved, community, it really, though you've been involved in some respect, get into this and get engaged throughout the rest between now and December really, but particularly between now and early March.
Thank you, Mayor Mike. And we adjourn. Okay, thanks, Zoe. Right, welcome back, everyone. We're now on tab 9 of diligence. Proposed private plan change 37. Okay, so the planning team are here to talk to us about this. Over to you and your team, Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, I'd just like to provide some opening remarks on this report for the proposed private plan change 37, Ryder Park Structure Plan Area. Then I'll just pass over to the team for some the detail. Firstly, this is a significant new growth cell request to be processed as a private plan change for Cambridge on the southeastern side of Leamington, known as the C5 growth cell. The land area is an order of 98.6 hectares, of which 45.71 hectares is already deferred residential within the post 2035 C5 growth cell. And then there's an additional 52.89 hectares of rural land. So part of it has already been identified as the Cambridge as a Cambridge residential growth cell. It is expected the proposal will deliver around 1,250 new houses and 2 new neighbourhood centres. And importantly, despite my delegated authority to authorise the processing of this private plan change, I did not want to exercise that authority. Given the significance of this private plan change request, I wanted to ensure elected members and the public are aware that this application has been lodged and that you as elected members authorise the processing of it. Importantly, this decision today is a procedural one. It's not a merit-based decision. I know it's easy to jump to the rights and wrongs of this plan change or positives or negatives, but it's a procedural decision regarding this matter. The merit-based issues will be dealt with through the process. The RMA criteria is very concise on the requirements for this decision, and the team have worked their way through it with a recommendation to you to accept the processing of the private plan change. The costs of the processing of the plan change are to be met by the applicant. And just some observations around the government direction. As you know, it is to provide more housing capacity, remove unnecessary planning barriers, free up land for urban development, have 30-year residential development capacity, ensure it's infrastructure ready, use different revenue tools, funding and financing tools the government is providing through the IFF Act. So council can control the cost of the infrastructure also through development agreements. So that's important to know that because there might be a general concern that, oh, this is another growth cell that's just come online and how are we going to fund the cost of it? We've been really clear to the applicant here that the costs, because this is a growth cell coming forward, the costs associated with any infrastructure upgrades are to be met by the applicant. They would have to be done through development agreements. The significance of the plan change will warrant public notification, and you'll see that the team have recommended that to you as well. We as council would also want to lodge submissions on the plan change. Consequently, we would seek to have the application determined by independent hearing commissioners. So that's my general observations. Alice, do you have any further comments you want to make?
Just that, good morning, everyone. Just to reiterate what Wayne has said with regards to the procedural, we've been very mindful that it is a procedural process today, not on merits. However, we have set out some of the areas of risk you'll see in my report that make up the matrix for the consideration of risk for this report. But that any of those issues or any matters on the merits of this would come through a hearing process through the notification process after RMA, through the RMA. Just also that the 2 areas, the plan changes you'll see through the figure 1 in my report, the diagram showing that the plan change area is split within the area making up an out of sequence area of deferred residential, and then the remainder is an unintended area in terms of it being rezoned, and that presently is zoned rural. Thank you.
Okay, questions? And look, it is going to be really tempting to dive into the rights or wrongs of this private plan change proposal. So I'd remind everyone what's been very clearly said, that this is a procedural step. So we're really here to consider the process, and the subsequent consideration obviously will happen later. Okay, I've got you all, courtesy of Claire. Ions first, then Roger, then Mike.
Good morning, folks. A couple of questions. One is quite simple, I think. So just for scale, number of dwellings in Leamington at the minute? About 3,500? Question? Don't know. Anyway, I'm just interested for scale. That's all. So I think it's about 3,500. I'm going to guess it's about 3,500. And this is 1,200, just for scale. And then my actual question was, in terms of not being inconsistent with sound resource management practice, is there, and in terms of the risks that you highlight, was that a boundary? Because when I consider all of the risks that you highlight, and I do not know the definition of sound resource management practice, was this application close to that boundary, or are those just two completely different things, and that sound resource management practice just says that we need to, as long as it's not crazy, or is there some border there where we say, well, actually, this is infringing so heavily on those risks that actually you could consider it to be outside sound resource management practice?
Through the chair, the plan change application that has been made has set out quite clearly how they consider that they meet all the risks and effects. What we have identified in my report is that there are still concerns with those risks in terms of whether or not that are real or not, in terms of how they have justified it.
Okay,
From an RMA justification perspective, it's been clearly justified with their opinion.
Yeah.
So the application is not vexatious in any way. It is, it has been completed under the RMA process. So the boundaries have been met in the terms of for notification, for processing purposes.
Thank you.
Good answer. Roger.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree totally with your responsive comments to me that we've got to be very, very careful not to be judgmental on the content of this application. But my question is, and there was certainly quite a lot of discussion during the election campaign about the pace of growth and how does council actually control that pace of growth. And here we have an example of an application that is trying to increase our growth supply outside of what our established definitions are. So I can understand that you can respond to this and you can decline it only on certain aspects. And all of those points that you mentioned, in fact, are not relevant to this. So the general question is, how do we then control the pace of growth for Cambridge? Because there is concern over that. Over to you.
Yeah, so I outlined earlier my opening, the government's direction. And as you see, it is about more supply of housing, housing capacity and housing development. Over and above that, you have other mechanisms coming through like fast track applications where the council are actually having to respond to applications that are being lodged. The Waipā 2050 strategy is really important about staging growth soil areas and having a really highly defined plan of the growth pattern that's going to eventuate around the town. And let's not forget that this application is part of that growth pattern. It is part of that growth soil has already been identified. So it's about sequencing and timing of it. And private plan changes are able to be lodged. And as you can see in the reasoning here, there is no requirements to stop the processing of a plan change based on sequencing. So we will deal with it through its merits. We'll be looking at the demand capacity and supply that's currently provided and how that fits in with this proposal. And that's a merit-based consideration. And I've also outlined in terms of the infrastructural provisions through development agreements and the costs of growth and who pays for it is another way of ensuring that that's hit home in terms of the development paying for it. So short answer is it's very difficult to stop growth. In fact, the government is encouraging the growth, right? And so we're having to respond to it. And we're using our mechanisms to do that. Hopefully that's answered some of your questions.
Yeah, well, it certainly explains the difficulty that we have and that it's actually out of our control very much. But one of the things that I requested, and I respect the answer that there hasn't been time to do it, is that currently the capacity that we have currently within our existing growth cells is actually currently determined by using a low density factor of 12 to 15, and yet the new policy statement, urban development, is requiring that all of our greenfields development should be of a medium density level, which is what, 2025 or 2530? 2530. So there's quite a difference in the capacity of our available cells. When would we be able to get an update on that so that we're aware of what our current capacity is? Because surely that's a factor in this consideration.
Yeah, really good question. And one that you know that we're working on in terms of quantifying the amount of development that is going on in Waipā district and in the growth cells, not only in Cambridge, but throughout Te Awamutu as well, and how we're meeting those, meeting the MPS urban development requirements. You'll be aware that we have done previous assessment reports to justify the requirements associated with those reports. 2023, I think, was the last one that we looked at in terms of the housing and business land capability, and looked at development capacity requirements, both short, medium and long term. So we'll be factoring in those discussions together with information that came through in the medium density residential plan change 26 analysis from market economics, and information that's come through in this plan change together with live information. So I don't have the information now that I can say, look, it's going to be delivered to you on X day. We are working on it, and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. And it's important too, in terms of the assessment of this plan change on its merits.
So in essence, your comment is that there's nothing we as council can do other than allow this private plan change to proceed to the next stage.
Well, that's the recommendation, that the council accept the processing of this plan change. The merit-based considerations will happen through the submission and hearings process.
Thanks, Wayne. Mayor Mike.
Thanks, Monty. Yeah, hey, good questions, Roger. I guess that submission this morning that's gone off around the rates capping this, whole scenario exactly fits into it around growth councils. My question is this, is with plan changes, no matter whether it's this or the next one, with the transition from RMA to the Natural Environment Act and the Planning Act, how does that sit in terms of transitioning from one to the other when you're in the middle of a process?
Through the chair, a very good question also. You might hear slightly more about that in a workshop later on about the RM submission. The transition stage for private plan changes is very unclear. They have introduced transition provisions for the consenting space and designations, but not for private plan changes. So we've raised that as a bit of a, oh, there's a gap in thinking there. So we don't have an answer at this stage.
And just a follow-up question on that, is the ability under the proposed new regime to introduce private plan changes the same, more restrictive or less restrictive?
Chair, at the present moment, how the bill is written, it would be very similar to presently. So private plan changes will still be permissible.
Okay, any further questions? Yeah, Roger,
Clarification
go ahead,
of
Roger.
that, if a private plan change did go through, the new legislation would prevent us from adopting it as a council plan change.
So I think I've understood correctly. So if we can't accept this as a council plan change because of the plan stop request from the central government. So we have no ability to take on new council plan changes, and that therefore one of the triggers that Alice has mentioned that we would normally be assessing is out of scope at the moment. Is that answer?
No, it was just a question that the new legislation it's currently saying that plan changes would pause.
Yep.
So that would also restrict, if this were accepted as a private plan change, and there were merit in that, in the past, in some instances, we've adopted like we did with 20, a private plan change as a council plan change, but that would be prevented under the new recommendations during transition.
Okay, I'm going to pass you back to Alice again, sorry.
Through the chair, under the transitional provisions that are set out in the bill at the moment, my understanding would be that the status that we're in at the moment in terms of plan stop would stay. However, when the transitional period ceases, my understanding from the reading of the bill as it is at the moment is that the parameters of consideration of private plan changes would be wider. Now, we could clarify that better. I mean, I'm just talking in terms of my initial reading, but the bill still has to work through.
Okay, Ian.
A more simple question, I think. So I see we've recommended that it's publicly notified, which I think is absolutely the right idea. Get back to my earlier point on scale. What would our plan be for public notification here? Because I'm guessing there's public notification and there's public notification. And I think this is, for the residents of Leamington, this is a pretty significant deal for everyone who lives there.
Our initial thoughts is wide public notification, so standard into the newspapers, and we would proceed as required under the Resource Management Act in terms of notifying directly affected parties.
We're also picking up on new technology, so Anteno as well, because that's really important, I think. That was made by Dean, that comment earlier, that we should be using that technology, and there's a reach out there in terms of people that are already signed up to Anteno. So if we can use Anteno for that community, I think highlighting that this private plan change is notified and people want to lodge a submission, it's another way of getting the message across.
Well, I guess just looking at the, awesome piece of work we looked at from a comms and engagement point of view earlier today around Cambridge Connections. You know, I know it's not as big a deal, obviously, but if there's anything we can piggyback on there to make sure that those, you know, residents in that area hear about this, I think that's worthwhile.
Okay, any further questions? If not, ask Wayne and the team. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I think you've educated us quite a bit on private plan changes, actually. I'll ask you to vacate. Refer everyone to page 120 on diligent. There's a 3-part recommendation here to receive Alice's report. Importantly, we resolve to accept proposed private plan change 37, and we resolve to publicly notify said plan change. Mike, are you moving? And Dean is seconding. Does anyone beyond that want to speak in favour or against this? Brilliant. I'll put to the vote then. All in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, tab 10. Strategic Planning and Policy Work Program Update. Now, we're intending to make this a standing agenda item. You've seen it already once, so I want it always there so that everyone knows what's coming in SPMP, thinking ahead, just so we sort of know the direction of travel and things get flagged to us in advance. So this will be standing. Sometimes there won't be much to discuss, but I always want us just thinking about it. Okay, so over to you.
Morning, thank you. I probably actually didn't have too much to say in addition to that, with the exception of just making the point that this is a live document, so it will keep changing. That is why we'll keep bringing it back to you as a standing item. But yeah, happy to take questions.
Marcus.
I'm just wondering about the layout of the spreadsheet of the projects. Like, it's good doing them by work stream, but I think it might be more, well, for me, if they're grouped by date, so that you could like maybe have a spreadsheet of them monthly, so you could sort of glance at, you know, in May, you've got these work streams instead of having to go through them all individually and sort of, you know, see them there.
Is the second part, Marcus, not good enough for you? Because we did this as a split spreadsheet for that reason. Does the second part work for you? Work program by meeting workshop day?
Okay, just ignore
it. Sorry, Marcus, I couldn't resist.
Obviously, I didn't get it.
Thank you for detailed reading of our work plan, Marcus. Appreciate the critique. That was clear next, and then Mike.
Yeah, it's good to read all of the agenda. Well, my question is whether or not we could have track changes version provided so that we know where the changes are from the previous time that we've seen it, because then we know straight away and we don't actually have to read everything. We can see where the changes are, and I'm sure that it's, I think it would be a great idea. I'm putting it out there.
No, look, I like it. And rather than track changes, we could just put changes just in red, right? For the subsequent meetings, you could just glance down, see what's changed, and like or don't like, we could do that easily, couldn't we, Melissa?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just pointing out for efficiency, that can be done automatically if you use the track change function. It doesn't have to be a special thing that I do, but whatever you say.
Yeah. It gets messy though, right? Track changes gets messy. Okay, Mike.
It's related to this, but it's a suggestion or it's a request, and it's actually the community board report. So it's not to do with the dates, etc. But when the community boards report in the past, it's been done very different ways. Is there any way of getting a template so we get something similar from both, you know, a structure, rather than, you know, sometimes they're written, sometimes they're verbal, sometimes they're about 10 things, other times they're about 2.
Absolutely, we can look at that as part of the work that we are doing with regard to the implementation of Community Board 2.0. We're turning our minds to how we can better support the community boards, how we can help them to be more effective. And part of that is around ensuring consistency in terms of reporting. So yeah, we can.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Just on that, Mike, I probably have something of a view that the community boards shouldn't be too hamstrung in coming here. We want to preserve them as advocacy groups. They can come here and say whatever they like. And I'm always open to that. And I wouldn't kind of like to hamstring them too much into a prescribed format of how they deal with us. I mean, sometimes it's been pretty robust and that's fine. But
Yeah, there can always be another section, but just there'll be commonalities that these boards deliver on, and I guess that's what and there's stuff. I think if you set them both down, there'd be a lot of commonalities that we could get from both boards, and you can go, well, that's what's happening, and get a good feel across the district around some commonalities. And at the moment, I just think personally it's just too loose. I think it would actually help the boards, give them a bit of structure. But I hear what you're saying. You want the freedom also of them be able to put in also whatever they want. So I've got no issue with that.
If I can maybe just respond to that, just in terms of, I think, theming. So we know that we're working with each of the boards to develop strategic priorities. So it might be that there's a section and we guide them. That, you know, there's flexibility, but we guide them in terms of strategic priorities, local issues of interest. So we can work with the community boards as part of the induction sessions and strategic planning sessions that we have programmed.
okay, great. Look, we're basically, I don't think we're contrary there at all. Shane?
I just want to reinforce that. I think a big piece of work that we need to do is the community boards. And I see in the future, the way that we're heading, community boards are going to be really, really important. So the work that we do now will put us in good stead.
So, you know, I'm a controls guy, right? So as far as I'm concerned, this all needs to be a Gantt chart, but none of you would thank me for that. So one small suggestion when you do those changes, if you could show what it was before, not just what it's changed to, that would be preferable. I'm not going to say track changes, but second one, just a wider question. I think I know the answer to this because you've sort of said there's no particular update. In terms of what you need from this entity, are we given, is there any gotchas for us right now that you aren't getting what you need from us or anything of that ilk, or have we held up our side of the deal so far?
No gotchas at this point. It is really just to provide oversight to you as elected members, so you've got awareness and transparency around what's coming up. So if there's anything on there that doesn't quite look right, or you're looking for something a little bit more, it would be a good time to raise it.
Thank you.
Okay, did you have a question, Claire?
Yeah, well, on that, yeah, I raised an issue about the growth strategy. I don't know if now's the right time or in the LTP work program itself. So that's why I didn't speak to it earlier. But I noticed that if you look on page 283, at the top sections there, I suppose that's in August, we've got the 2050 growth strategy approved for consultation, but there's no workshops program before that. I just see it as a pretty important document, especially as, you know, growth is going to be one of our big things, I think, in the next, in this training. And so I'm just asking, yeah, that it'd be good to have a number of workshops programmed before then. And is that going to fit in with your heavy work program as it stands, actually? Yeah.
So I think that is probably a really good point that you have raised, Claire, is this schedule provides oversight of everything that's going to be covered by this committee. So that be either a formal report or as part of a workshop. With the growth strategy, or I guess sometimes with these projects, it can be a case of where we can find workshop time with elected members, depending on the timeframes for the project. And so with the growth strategy in particular, there are additional workshops planned, but they're just not going to be as part of the SPMP committee. So that's why they're not represented here.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm really pleased to hear that there is the expectation that there'll be some good foundational work done, yeah, reviewing that strategy and with elected member involvement. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Just with Monty's permission, it's sort of what Melissa's referring to as an administrative way that we run things, that the workshops are run through a different stream of work. We link them to each council or committee meeting, but they run through a different stream just to maximise the time. This is a great initiative that the Chairs Committee has asked for in terms of, the only committee that's had a forward work program has been risk and assurance to date. This is getting one for each committee. So we're just lining them up, getting alignment of work, but the workshop time will be maximised for what's important, what are our priorities, and how we allow enough time to do exactly as you've asked. But just as an administrative thing that is normal for us, but it just might be helpful to know from a, councillor perspective.
Okay, I think you can probably move on to the long-term plan work update, which is a subset of what we've just been doing. Oh, do we actually have a resolution?
Yeah.
Sorry, omitted that. We do have for tab 10, we do have a resolution, just that we received the report of Melissa. I'm happy to move. Dale Marie, I got you first, second. Everyone in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Back again, sorry about that. I didn't know we had a resolution in there. I should have known that. My bad. Right, a subset of SPMP's work plan is, of course, the long-term plan work update. Over to you again.
Thank you. So yes, I think this is the first status report for the 27-37 long-term plan. Again, this will be a standing item at each SPMP committee, just to give you all kind of formal oversight as to how the project is progressing. So you'll see the table sort of breaks down the 4 different phases or work streams of the project, and just summarises how it's tracking with a status bar there. You'll see that all of the work streams bar the communications and engagement one is on track. As a project, we're very much in that foundations phase. We're very active in that phase, but also we are in the planning stages for the activity planning work stream as well as the financial phase. So we're not kind of losing sight of those. There can be quite long lead-in times for deliverables in each of those work streams as well. So with respect to the monitor status for the communications and engagement work stream, this is largely as a result of kind of diverting resources to be able to progress the annual plan project. So that's why that's currently in its monitoring phase. The only other thing that I would just like to mention, you'll see in front of you, is the long-term plan roadmap. So this is kind of a nice summary of the project, looking at its phases or stages, sorry, each of the kind of key elected member inputs, and then the considerations are on the back, just to kind of act as some prompts as we work through each of the stages of the long-term plan. And then we're well aware that in local government, we like a lot of acronyms. So we've pulled together a bit of a glossary that's specific to the long-term plan. So each time we talk about the long-term plan, be it this forum or a workshop, we will have these in front of you just as a reference document. Happy to take questions.
Just one from me, Melissa. When you look at the deliverables table, page 287 on diligent, I mean, some of these dates are January 26. I'm assuming those are kind of management things sitting in the background, like develop project management plan, PSG and PGG approval. They were January 26. So those things are on track, happening in the background.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's a really good point. So the dates are not necessarily the touch points with elected members. It's just to kind of indicate that we as staff are also progressing things. This is the key document at this stage that we're managing the project. We do have a project manager starting on Monday to help really charge this project forward.
Any questions, people? Claire?
Yeah, thanks. Just on the PGG, I thought you and Mike were on the PGG, so you should know that that's on track for January. Yeah, that's all.
Hence my question.
Okay, all right, just a minor point. I have a question about the levels of service review. So that's on page, I think it's 289 at the bottom Sal, yeah. So I just would like to understand a bit more about the approach, the scope of that's likely to take for the levels of service review. Like I've been through a couple of LTPs in the past, and generally those level of service reviews have been very targeted, yeah, quite limited, you know, just one or two activities looked at. But I just feel that with the broad scope of the reforms that we're in the process of, yeah, probably a wider view is probably going to be needed, and even a transformational approach. Yeah, so it'd be great, Melissa or Kirsty, if you could just give us an idea of what you think it's going to look like.
Yeah, so with respect to the level of service, actually, I'll sort of go back a little bit. Off the back of the last long-term plan, we did a series of debriefs with different groups, and the elected members was one of those groups. I think that throughout most of those debrief sessions, if not all, levels of service reviews was something that came up as a needing to be a focus for this long-term plan. So with that in mind, we've provided for a comprehensive review, initially looking at all of the services that we provide. But I think it's probably important to make the point that we don't have the resourcing to do a very comprehensive review of all of our levels of service. And so the initial workshop that we'll be having with elected members will be kind of developing a shortlist. Where do you want us to focus staff resourcing? I guess there is some thinking that would align to elected member strategic priorities, and we're having a workshop on that next month. Yeah.
That's really helpful, actually. Like the idea of getting feedback from elected members on where to focus. Yeah, because I agree, God, it would be a massive job. Something that would be important for me as an elected member, apart from strategic priorities, is to look at those levels of services that need rates to fund them. Yeah, so I really like the differentiation between what activities are done by council, but what's done that needs rates funding and what is achieved through other funding mechanisms, because rates is definitely a focus for me this triennium, and that's the kind of information that would help me focus, I suppose, yeah, where would I focus, yeah, or want to have focus put. Yeah, thanks.
And can I just follow that? For me, one of the weaknesses last time is that the level of service debate comes pretty early in the piece. And everyone says, yeah, we want those level of service. But then you get to the crunchy end at the end when the finances become apparent and the budgets become apparent. And it's kind of hard to have the rationing decision, the rationing debate that you need to have, because you know, level of service kind of came early last time. So I think you and I are on the same page here, Claire, that you need to have a sensible rationing decision about level of service and what it costs. So look, I am on the PGG, so I'll be continuing to talk about this, but how we structure this going forward in terms of building blocks, I think it's really important that you don't close off level of service and then do all the maths and go, cost this at the end, and then have to go back again. So for me, they're intricately tied together, the level of service, the cost and the affordability.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with you totally on that, actually. And I think your sort of summation of what happened the last time with the LTP, yeah, I kind of agree with you. So I'm looking at that, the roadmap. And so above the levels of service review, you've got the blue foundations. So I think what you were signalling, and I jump in there too, that we need to be able to have the detail to ensure that that kind of thinking can be applied, perhaps in the strategic direction, and then the stock taken and the forecasting. Yeah, so with the, I don't know if it's possible, yeah, like, but we'd need to have it that early to at least, as you said, put the building blocks in place. Yeah, certainly not the final analysis, but definitely have the direction of travel identified and likely areas where we'd like to focus.
I think there's a couple of parts to that. So yes, the strategic direction is one key part, think one of the other ones is around the financial strategy. So we're looking to, again, have a workshop on that very imminently, just to help start to frame up what the fiscal envelope is. And then, but also with respect to the level of service review as cost, or kind of put costings around that as much as possible, just to, try and avoid what happened last time.
Okay, this is a really good discussion. I don't want to put staff on the spot because we're very early in this process, but it's useful to have it sort of as a foundational discussion. And I think we're probably all agreeing that on the way we will proceed. Okay, I've got Mike and then Ian.
One's just a quick comment. Level of service, costs, but also consequence. And that's something I think we need to think about when we delve into this future workshop or whatever. It's easy to focus on the first two, but and many councils have done that, and they haven't really focused on the outcome, and the outcomes come back and bite them in the backside, where the community wake up to the reality of what they've sort of asked for that council then delivered. So it's just, let's learn from lessons past. I like the idea that, 100% we need to set the direction for you about what to delve right down deep into, and many of us will be in favour of that. Just an aside and a bit ad hoc, but in terms of here, Easter trading hours, I'm tagging it in here, it's not in here, right? It's not in here, but Easter trading hours, when does that come up for review in terms of going onto the schedule, or how would you get it on there?
So I understand that that's been raised by a community organisation, and look, we need to look at our work program as to when it is statutorily required and or where it is programmed. And I've reached out to Deputy Mayor Joe on the back of that communication to talk about elected member proposed approach, and then how we as an organisation respond and look at our prioritisation of work.
Thanks for that, Casey.
One for your project manager when they arrive. So what we can see from the deliverables table is, somewhat unsurprisingly, there's already a fair bit of pressure on here. So if we look at our environmental scan, for example, it was originally scheduled to finish in December, and now we're forecasting it's February. And that same story sort of replicates through a number of areas there. Excuse me. All I'd say is, let's not lose those original dates. As the pressure comes on and you start to see that slippage, show us. Because if you need more help, we should get it to you. So. I finished.
You finished, Ian? All right, you can come back when you've died over there. Steph.
Thanks, Ian, for that comment. And I just want to take the opportunity to draw your attention to the fact of how complex and large that work program is. And the more time we spend on the annual plan, it will impact the long-term plan process. There is not a shadow of doubt, and we have the same people doing both. So it's something that is very real and not a philosophical thought. It is a very real impact in the organisation. And I would just like to colour that, particularly for the most recently elected members, that this is on the back of kind of a rolling 2-year process, because we were in an LTP before I came in 23-24. We then went to an enhanced annual plan, and then we went back to an LTP. So this has been a rolling workload for the organisation, which is well over and above what would be a normal LTP cycle. And I just want you to be aware in the next couple of months, when you see how complex the annual plan conundrum and decisions are, that there is a close interconnection. So please, keep that top of mind. It will be a useful conversation for us. Thank you. Thanks, Monty.
Yeah, great comment, Steph. And we've got to land an annual plan first, obviously, and the more time we spend on that, the less or the more this is going to get compressed.
And your big levers are in this.
Yeah, exactly.
To be honest,
yeah.
This is where your big levers sit to address the issues that I know are top of mind for you.
Okay. All right, fine. Any further questions? If not, I'll ask you to vacate. I think this is a a low controversial resolution though. Long-term plan work program update, page 294. The recommendation is simply that we receive the report. I'll move that. Claire will second it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay. We are moving on to an Anchor Institutions Implementation Plan update, the 6-monthly progress report.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is where I declared an interest.
Yeah, and it's a broad agenda item though, right? So I'm happy if it gets towards a pointy end of conflict, we can stop and you can remove yourself.
Thank you. I'm happy that I've declared it. Yeah, because I don't want questions asked, why wasn't it declared? But I certainly will be, yeah, being prudent in what comments I make.
No, well done. Yeah, my judgment though is this is such a broad topic that, yeah, recusing yourself would be unnecessary and basically unhelpful. Okay, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'll just introduce this really briefly to tune you in. The Anchor Institution Framework was obviously adopted by Council just over a year ago. We reported on the first year of implementation 6 months ago, and now we're 6 months into year 2 of implementing the Anchor Institution Framework. So this report provides you with that update. We've got 13 specific initiatives underway this year. And all of them are on track. It's a reminder that these are woven into existing work. That's not additional funding provided for any of these initiatives. And I think that that's the key point that I just wanted to make before I hand over to questions is sort of a reminder that that being an anchor institution is absolutely about having that partnership-led approach, that partnership-led innovation and looking for funding and delivery in innovative ways. And that's true with the strength of our Māori economy, with the Philanthropic Society, with other councils, looking at ways that we might be able to partner to get really great outcomes for our community. That's a way of thinking and a way of working rather than just the specific initiatives that we're obviously driving through. So I'll take the report as read, and if there are any questions, I can obviously answer those.
Claire, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy with the report as it stands. I have a question on page 304, and it's to do with the collaborations and I guess with CoLab. The detail says that this professional services panel, has been, it's been active for quite a long time, and is achieving savings. It'd be really great if we could have reportings on those savings and demonstrating how we are, like we often get questions about the cost of consultants, and we do, I think we get general reporting on it, but it'd be quite good if even possibly savings,
Claire, absolutely agree. We should get it. I think it's either, I'm still getting used to the system over here, but I think it's either twice a year, once a year. We should get a full report from CoLab about the savings that we achieve as per each owning council through our partnership with CoLab. So we'll check in when that's next coming to you. Absolutely hear you and agree.
Yeah, that's great. And I see that Waikato Waters has been identified as another possible collaborator. And which I think that's excellent to see that. And again, if there are opportunities to create savings through that, working, cooperatively, it'd be great if we could have that reported as well. Thanks.
Shane, go ahead.
I think something interesting for us to remember is that the government has signalled the intent to remove all reference to community wellbeing. And right in the middle of this is a community wellbeing. But on saying that, and when you go through all the items, a lot of it is actually just about doing what you're doing now, but doing it better, which is fine. So if I go through like procurement, the only thing that sticks out for me that I think is outside that is a community wellbeing that we shouldn't may be getting into is the employment side of things. I think there are other organisations, especially business chambers, etc., that can be focusing on that. And then when we go through a process to decide what we can do and what we shouldn't be doing, obviously the government's already steering us into getting out of community wellbeing. So I just want to raise that as something that we need to think about and strategically.
Yeah, look, thank you for raising that. It's certainly true that the community wellbeing reference will be removed. We remember that the core services are still listed, and those things are what we've really had in mind, because the core services draft was already in place when we drafted this specific initiatives for this year, and was something that was discussed with the previous council as the initiatives were set. Each year, we come to you with a suggested implementation plan for the following year, and so it will be a really good opportunity in that 6 months' time to make sure that we're really focusing on those aspects that will give us the highest value in that area. I think and economic development is one of those things that actually the government is still seeing that we have a role in, and tourism is another one where they've specifically called out a role for local government. And I think that that's the discussion around this table about what role this council chooses to play and what its relative priority is against everything else. And that would happen, like I say, both through your long-term plan discussions and then in your specific activities that you might then actually pick up through your anchor institution framework.
Okay, Damarie.
Tēnā koe, Monty. Yeah, thanks, Kelly, because you've actually just answered everything that I was going to say in response to Councillor Walsh. I've heard around the table this morning peers echoing the intentions of government, central government, and what they want to do up here. But I have to say, Councillor Walsh, when we're talking about wellbeings, central government can have their whole thought about taking wellbeings out of what they think is best for us here in our rohe. And I'm tired of hearing that kōrero, that central government don't care about our well-being, when it is not them here and us sitting around this table that have to listen to our constituents who are worried about the well-being that we do with our mahi at council. So this isn't actually my friend, but this is online, because we have had this theme today across our table of echoing themes of central government and not forgetting that it's about here. And today here, I hear again about wellbeing being discussed as if it's not really important. And I'm just not going to echo what central government says all the time, because I got elected to worry about the constituents in my rohe. And I'm not going to buy into the centralisation of everything that they want to do down in Pōneke. So ka nui te mihi kia koe, Katie, for answering what I was going to be responding in regards to some of the stuff that we're talking about around wellbeings in this whakaaro. So tēnei te mihi atu kia koe.
Roger.
Yes, thank you. And I'm actually pleased Dale Marie had that opportunity to speak, as she has done, in support of community well-beings. However, I also concur with Shane's view that if the Local Government Amendment Act is changed, then we as council will actually have no option but to follow what legislatively, I don't think that came out right, we are advised that we must follow that. And I think my question actually was going to be, in following Shane's, when that Local Government Amendment Act does come through in whatever form, and if it does remove the 4 well-beings, as apparently it is intended to do, we're not sure that it'll go through, but if it does, will this document be brought back to this table to review? Because I agree there are some good things in the document, but there are also some things under the new amended act that we will not be required to get involved in. Well, I think my question is really, will this document as such be brought back to this table to review its focus?
So I'm going to respond to that. Thank you, Roger. And a few points to make. Just to reiterate that the bill hasn't yet been enacted. We expect that it will be enacted largely in accordance with what has been made available through the Select Committee and consultation process. So there is work underway within the strategy team, and I have spoken to this previously, looking at our strategies and plans and how they align with the suggested or proposed revised wording and what, if any, impacts there might be for us. Notwithstanding that, we have an LTP, the 25-34 long-term plan, and that's live and current for this financial year and isn't to be replaced by a new long-term plan until the 1st of July 2027. That long-term plan is our contract with our community, and it very clearly has our strategic direction that we are working to, our vision and our community outcomes. And if you recall, those community outcomes are all prefaced on the well-beings. There is cultural champions, environmental champions, social well-being, and economic. There is one relating to the economy. Sorry, I can't for the life of me think of it off the top of my head. But they are currently prefaced around the well-beings. We, as you've just heard from Melissa, we're going to be coming to you in March with a workshop to look at our strategic direction and our foundation pieces. So there'll be an opportunity for elected members too to then feed into that discussion process. Likewise, I said we are looking at alignment in our strategies and plans and what the impacts would be. So we intend to maintain that dialogue with you.
Kirsty, your perception of when this, I mean, I know the Local Government Amendment Act has gone through its consultation phase and it is now ready for its second reading. Am I correct on that?
So look, off the top of my head, I can't respond to that. We do provide you with a legislation tracker that we share with you through On the Radar, and there has been a request for that to be enhanced. So we will go back and have a look, and I will send out an email to elected members just giving you.
I'm pretty confident that's the case because I actually asked for our Member of Parliament to give me a judgment of when it is. So I think it's ready to go forward to its second reading, which then means that the third reading should follow soon after that. But thank you.
And through Monty, I mean, all councils will be needing to adjust where they're at in relation to that. It won't happen overnight. All 78 councils across the country are going to have to think about how they respond to that piece of legislation. So there'll be a process at play.
I'm just going to jump in with two comments here. First is to my new elected members around the table, just to emphasise how important in the LTP process the strategic direction piece is. It comes quite early, but it echoes down through the next 3 years. So take it seriously. Oh, no, sorry, that's wrong. Everyone takes it seriously, but you don't quite realise at the time how important it is because it echoes through everything, through your annual plans, your budgets and so on. So we really need to agree that as a group, it is really important. And secondly, just I've got a bit of a theory on the institutions framework, which I want to share, because for me, it's more, it's not what we do, but it's how you do it. It's a way of doing things which can make it much more enduring than whatever legislative framework we're operating under. And if you think of it like that, which is how I do it, it's a lens through which I view my job and the role of this organisation. And we are, by definition, really, this institution that sits here in Waipā that is a placemaker and has the ability to partner and influence, etc., with and leverage of all sorts of other organisations. And if you view it like that, it actually has, it endures and it exists outside of any legislation. And I look at all sorts of examples of things that we are doing already where I would argue that we are fulfilling that role, like the Mangatautari Ecological Island Trust. We partner with that trust. We get massive benefit. We leverage off it. And it's us sitting there in the middle doing these kind of things. Cambridge Town Hall is another one. And there's a real ability for us to do that. leveraging, not spending our own money. And we are, doing really great service to our communities and our ratepayers if we do that right. So I try and think of it as a lens to view the job, a way of doing things rather than driving what we do. So that's just my personal feeling. And yeah, okay, right, Claire, question. You were on my list, but you're happy?
I could echo what you were saying and say how fantastic, because it's not just about sticking to our budgets and being very narrow in our focus. It's more about how can we make this better, greater for all of the people that we're working together with. As you say, it's that leverage. It's maximising the outcomes. It's increasing our influence and I really don't want to use the word well-being, but really the outcomes for everyone are totally transformed. And so it's not talking about more money being spent or bigger budgets, but smarter and better ways of doing things.
Okay, Mike.
Thanks, a lot there, Claire. Page 307, and just I see it's in green, so we're on track. This is around, hang on. No, I've done something. This is around, where was it? It's not 307. It was around, anyway, it was around Mana Whenua, and it was around Te Nui, and it was around Ngāti Koroki Kahukura. I've lost the page, and around economic and housing developments. I've lost the page it was on. Here it is. It is on page 307. We work with Te Nui on the housing aspirations and work with Ngāti Koroki Kahukura on housing and economic aspirations. It's something, hey, I'm pretty passionate about. So just, it's green, just how are we going there?
Thanks, Mike. We're working with them on a number of fronts. Cool. We've got some specific projects that are more formed than others. A high level one would be the initiative with Te Nui and their aspirations at Tukanui, but they've also got aspirations to build, and I've been talking with Sam about the area around Kihiki, etc. So we are continuing to work. We do need to build our capability and capacity internally to understand how to work within the Māori housing sector, because they have specific arrangements with MHUD, for example, and the Māori housing sector in New Zealand has pushed ahead and gone ahead at speed, and we need to know how to work into that and work with it. So we need to grow our own capacity and capability. But we are working with them on a number of fronts. And of course, having Neda and Erin on board has really helped those conversations progress.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for that, Steph.
We'll bring some of that into this chamber so you can get an update on it and get some speakers to come in and talk about some of those projects.
Nice. And hey, it would be actually nice to get someone like Sam in, and actually tell us directly Thank you.
That note though, Mayor Mike, I wonder if you want to just affirm, we met with some of the iwi chairs on Friday, and they were really affirmative about working together on economic and social and environmental outcomes. And they particularly said to you, and they really supported you to say that they really want to unlock the partnership and think about the economic aspirations and what else we can do together. Do you want to talk to that maybe?
Yeah, totally. And just to add to that, hey, if there's anything, they're more than happy to come in and speak to us directly, so not trying to go through a third party or trying to get questions answered. They're more than happy to come in and talk, and we ask directly. So as things come up, it would actually be good to get as part of the right people in the room at the right time. So the offer was greatly appreciated, and the relationship, it has been strong. It'll just go from strength to strength. So, Kapai.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just responding to that. So in the last triennium, we had a housing subcommittee or a working party, and that was kind of shelved because we felt that we'd done our work. But just, thinking about what you were saying, Steph, like if there is significant opportunity, emerging because of the Māori housing initiatives, perhaps we could look at reactivating that or something?
Yeah, I think we could. I don't think at this stage there's any need. And in fact, this is the perfect place to have this conversation because it's us identifying where our role is. And often we're not the lead. Sometimes we're a facilitator, a supporter, an advocate. And in this case, actually, we are way ahead of us. And we just need to be a supporter and a partner and understand how we can get in and help them unlock their opportunity on land or with partnership with central government. But I do think that there's a broader question about what is our role on the housing spectrum, right through from emergency affordable housing to market-led housing. And I think we need to have a question through the long-term plan process, maybe, or aligned with that, about what does this current council think about that? Because identifying where we think we sit on that spectrum also aligns to our property strategy and some other work programs. So I think that will be a useful conversation, though, Claire.
Can I add to that, Claire? So outside of the discussion, sort of, but to do with that housing strategy, I met with Simon Perry and Jen a few days ago, and what they're doing with Bridge. Yeah. And look, I think we're going to have some opportunities down the track. Then we've got some meetings, preliminary meetings happening of medium-term thinking around how we can help people, but help ourselves as well. So I think there's some really good opportunity, not just in Māori housing, but just affordable housing also around our district.
Housing affordability is an issue that's just got more and more, I suppose, accentuated. Yeah, cool.
Okay. Thanks for that. Thanks, Katie. Look, I mean, that morphed beyond just the implementation report to a richer discussion about thinking about our role, which is probably a really good thing to do in this agenda item. So that's why I let it roll. And yeah, it'll feed nicely into our consideration of the next long-term plan, strategic direction, et cetera, because it's all part of it. Okay, we just have a simple recommendation to receive Katie's report on page 300. I'll move. Can someone second me? Dale Marie, all those in favour, please say aye. Against? So carried. Okay. The next agenda item is a PX one to do with strategic boundary agreement with Hamilton City. We're going to conduct this in public excluded. So I need a resolution to move us into public excluded. I got Ian and Dale Marie moved and seconded that. Does anyone want to discuss this? Okay, no.